take projection.
It's Wednesday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And we have got a whole lot of stuff to cover this week. We're on our Wednesday schedule now. So we've got Dynamite from last week and Collision from AEW, and then we've got Friday Night SmackDown and Monday Night Raw to cover, as well as probably a couple other things. So let's just go ahead and get straight into SmackDown from Friday night. Start off with the WWE as we typically do. Bloodline segment off the top. How it usually goes recently, at least. Well, they usually get at least a couple of segments in the show.
Oh, yeah.
So Jay starts it off with a promo, and Roman interrupts him and tells him that he's the one that's supposed to be top the show. And, Jay thinks he's the leader of the Bloodline already. So, should be an exciting match this coming weekend between those. So I assume they'll main event, right?
Yeah, they got to go on. We're a broken record at this point. Another just fantastic segment from everyone involved. I love the little wrinkle now of Paul Heyman is carrying the red lay to the ring because Roman Reigns, his tribal chief, position is kind of up in arms until we get to SummerSlam. Again, just, Jey Uso has skyrocketed to popularity in a way that, I was watching WWE when they were 5 years ago when they were the Usos. I would have never predicted that either one of them would be as popular as what they are in a singles run, much less kind of both of them. I mean, we haven't even seen Jimmy in a while.
Yeah,
you have to think he shows up Saturday,
sure,
though. But Jay coming out to a huge ovation. And again, it's like we talk about all the time with this story, just the subtlety, right? Jay can't look Roman in the eyes when Roman's making his entrance. And then the first time Jay really looks at him and smiles is when after Roman asks him the question, what makes you think that you can be the tribal chief? And Jay's answer is because I've already beat you. I'm the only guy that's pinned you. And you kind of start to see the confidence come back up. But I think Jay is just really interesting as a character because he's the type of hero that I think is the most interesting in a narrative sense, in that he is not a guy who wished to be put in this situation, right? The weight of the moment has kind of been thrust upon him, and he's the only one he can do it. He's the only guy that can go into the cave and slay the dragon. There's nobody else that can do it but him. Now, he's probably going to fail at that.
Sure. At least this time.
At least this time, right? But there's a quality about that is just timeless and classic that makes it. This is as old school storytelling as it gets, right? This goes back to ancient type of storytelling. So
I mean, he's right though, and he did get the clean pin.
He did. Now it was a tag team, but still, he's the only guy who has pinned Roman's shoulders to the mat. And then, of course, flash forward to the end of the show. Roman last week was hesitant to attack Jay. This week, he pulls the trigger, and him and Solo beat up Jay to end the show.
Yeah, after Jay's match
with Grayson Waller. So could Roman kind of be feeling the heat now? Is Roman feeling a little bit of doubt?
I mean, maybe so for Roman to pull the trigger like that.
Yeah, because last week it was respect, it was all that. This week, start to feel the fire a little bit. Okay, we got to put this dude away. My question to you is, what happens at Tribal Combat at SummerSlam? Because they reiterated multiple times on the show that anything goes, which means Solo can interfere, Jimmy can interfere, all these guys can get involved, right? Again, this is me throwing out a fantasy booking situation. What if on Saturday we get to, 10 minutes into the match, here comes Solo, here comes Jimmy back, all hell's breaking loose, and all of a sudden, Alpha and Sika come walking through the tunnel, here comes Rikishi, and everybody just comes to a stop. Because now the elders have shown up, and they just look at Solo and they look at Jimmy and they point, tell him to get to the back. Because otherwise, how do you get out of this?
Right.
If you don't have like some kind of intervention from the elders that say, no, it's between these two. We're going to have it between these two. Nobody else is getting involved.
It's funny you say that because I was about to say dream booking scenario for me would be, Jay's getting the ever-loving shit kicked out of him. Jimmy's tied up somewhere, getting shit beat out of him. And then Sammy comes back to help Jay. Because I always felt like, they've got that special connection there. But it might be too soon to bring back Sammy.
And that's possible, too. I just think if you're going to put the moniker of tribal combat, then
you got to bring in the elders.
Now's the time to start bringing in other people. And I would just hire a shit ton of other Samoan extras. I'd have a shit ton of people walk out. People we didn't even know. Be like, who's that? I don't know. Just a mass of like 50 jack Samoan dudes and Alpha and Seeker at the head. And they look at Solo and they look at Jimmy and they don't have to say anything. Just nod. And Jimmy and Solo just walk to the back. And then we're left with Roman and Jay standing in the middle of the ring to finish us out one-on-one.
Yeah, that'd be good. It's good
So
story,
we'll see what happens. Yeah. If it happens, I want a check from WWE. Not a big one, just a small one.
Just an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Acknowledge me.
Acknowledge me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I'm SummerSlam is gearing up to be a really good card.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun stuff.
We might need to pull that up. I didn't think about having it pulled up before we get out of here, but we could do a couple of quick picks maybe.
Quick rundowns, yeah.
Yeah. Other stuff from Friday night, Rey Mysterio versus Escobar. And Rey got hurt. At first I was like, is this legit or is this just a story? But I think he's for real injured, right?
It seemed that way. I was watching it live and I was like, oh, something's up because the pacing of this match is off. And Rey kept like opening and closing his hand, kind of the way you do like when you have a stinger or something. And then, Santos does the dive and Rey falls, and then the commentary uses that to say, oh, he hit the back of his head, which I don't know. It kind of looked like he maybe did, but I don't think that's what injured him. I think he was kind of hurt before that. I mean, look, Rey is also 48 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, he is up there in age where things like this, unfortunately, I mean, this can happen to anybody.
Look, I'm 46 and I sleep wrong and I can't move my neck for 3 days. Right?
Yeah. And he's out here doing hurricanranas and doing all this stuff. So, you brought up before we started recording, do I think Santos was going to win? I don't know. I mean, I don't think he would have. I think it would have been Rey and Austin Theory, but now they have Escobar and Theory for the U.S. title at SummerSlam. I do find it funny that at the beginning of this tournament, they had Austin Theory on commentary. And within like 5 minutes, he had just repeated that he beat John Cena like 17 times. And they were like, hey, that's enough. We're just going to put you in the skybox. I don't know. Look, that dude has a ton of potential. He's still really young. He has a great look. He's great in the ring. He'll figure it out eventually. But like, I don't know what they're doing with him because he has basically been a footnote for this entire month.
I mean, there's not much memorable happening there.
Has he done anything post WrestleMania?
No.
And even the WrestleMania build-up was kind of, John Cena was carrying a lot of that. So, I don't know. We talk about rehabilitation projects all the time with wrestlers. It might be time for old Theory to go back to rehab for at least the third time since we've been doing this podcast, I think. So, I don't know. They got to figure something out with that guy. He needs a manager.
Yeah. Maybe for just a little bit.
Yeah.
He
has a ton of
going for him.
Ton of potential, though.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, he's everything you want in a superstar in terms of like looks and athleticism, but something's not clicking.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. Lastly, for SmackDown, our man's LA Knight again cuts a promo on the way to the ring. Well, that might be my new favorite shit. Right, it's him cutting a promo on the way to the ring. Yeah, I love it. But for whatever reason, he's in a matchup versus Adonis from Hit Row. Yeah, pretty fast. 1, 2, 3. Crowd still just over as hell for this dude.
Yeah, and it seems as if they have added a battle royal to SummerSlam. presumably, it seems as if just to get this guy on the card in some kind of capacity, given all the outrage that the internet had for him not being the winner of that U.S. title match, a qualifying match. I mean, look, I don't remember this. So if he's been doing this move, somebody let me. I know he's been doing the elbow drop, but people have called him Stone Rock. They called him rip off of Stone Cold and The Rock. Our man's has leaned into it.
Yeah.
So much so that he did
the stunner and the elbow.
He both back to back. He dropped the elbow and then dropped a damn stunner that turned into like an RKO, which looked kind of cool that they called I don't remember what they called it. But I was like, oh shit, that's a really smart decision. Just be like, fuck it. You gonna call me Stone Cold and The Rock? I'm gonna do both this shit.
Yeah.
We'll lean into it. If he wins a title and he starts doing the thing where he just holds the title and just whips it back behind him like The Rock used to do, then I'll just fully just lose my mind, because screw it. If they're going to call you ripoffs, fucking go all the way with it.
Just lean into it, man.
Lean into it.
Yeah, I don't know how many times we can say, what are they doing with this dude? But what are they doing with this dude?
Well, it seems as if, I guess Slim Jim has sponsored a Battle Royal and they're going to put him on SummerSlam card in that, because he had that backstage interaction with Sheamus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just crazy because that U.S. title was just dangling out there.
Yeah, I felt like that was the move. And I feel like they talked about it because he came out and said he was going to challenge for it, and then he gets beat in the Eliminator, and I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah.
And then that turns into nothing because Rey gets hurt.
Yeah. Did they anticipate the amount of backlash they were going to get for not having LA Knight win this Eliminator?
How did he not?
I mean, yeah, especially when you're Triple H and like post Money in the Bank, you have to stand up there and be like, hey, we know you wanted LA Knight to win, but like, trust us. Like, okay, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Those pops, man, every time that music hits.
I feel like they're going to drag it on until he ain't getting over anymore.
But I don't think they can stop it.
Yeah.
This train has left the station. It's rolling. Like, the people love LA Knight.
Yeah.
The kids are losing their mind. The grown-ups are there. Like, everybody's doing they're following everything with LA Knight. Like, he is the man of the moment right now on SmackDown and in WWE.
Yeah.
And it's about time to capitalize on it.
Yeah. Well, I missed Raw because I was in Nashville last night seeing Dinosaur Jr., so you're going to have to carry the Raw segment for this one. I did see, for whatever reason it popped up today, Brock Lesnar's shitty little promo.
Yeah, I mean, not his strong suit, right? Talking on the microphone. He doesn't have to because he's a beast. But yeah, they had a little interaction. So we anticipated there was going to be some kind of stipulation put to their match. As of this recording, when something could happen Friday, and something could happen Saturday, I guess, before the show starts. There's no stipulation whatsoever. It's just a normal match, which is a little surprising.
Yeah.
We thought, I wanted Hell in a Cell, but they had other plans. But yeah, that angle's just there to kind of, on Monday, to just keep it in the front of people's minds. I mean, that'll be a big marquee match for the show. Where you place it would probably be, that probably has to go on first, I would guess.
That would make sense if you're gonna headline Jay and Roman.
It seems to me like Brock's the type of guy where he's like, hey, if I ain't going on last, I'm going on first. Yeah. And I want to be back on the plane and back home before the show's even over. Yeah. So that might be if there was betting odds for what's the first match, I might put a 10 or $15 on that one. The big thing that stood out for me from Monday Night Raw, and I might have mentioned this before, somewhere out there, if you believe in the multiverse, right, there's an alternate universe where Logan Paul's uncle or his granddad or somebody is just a huge wrestling fan. And so all Logan Paul wants to do when he's growing up is be a wrestler. And in that alternate universe, Logan Paul is the greatest professional wrestler on that planet. This dude is such a natural in the ring. He gets everything about wrestling. He's such a just smarmy. First of all, he's got just a fucking punchable face, right?
That goddamn haircut.
And the haircut and he is just an arrogant prick, and his ability to just know how to get under everybody's skin. And I love the final little blow of him being like, oh, that's your fiance, right? That ring announcer. Well, come Saturday night, she's going to be saying my name instead of yours. And then this has just been, I mean, we've talked about Logan Paul before, how good he is. He has to be the best like crossover star, that celebrity that WWE's ever had. I mean, him and Bad Bunny are on the Mount Rushmore of celebrity involvement in WWE.
Yeah, just the match between Bunny and Priest from earlier this year, like,
yeah,
yeah, that's got to be an all-timer for a guest spot. But in terms of overall stuff, yeah, I mean, Logan's really fucking good in the ring, and you can't deny it. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but you'd just be hating. He's
great on the mic. I mean, that's what's kind of the most painful about it, right? Is that you look, it's Logan Paul and Ricochet are in the ring. Ricochet's been doing this for 2 decades. And if you just pulled somebody off the street who didn't know anything about wrestling and be like, look at these 2 guys, look at this promo, tell me who's the bigger star, it would have to say it's Logan Paul. Or who, not only who's the bigger star, but who's been doing this the longest. Now, that being said, Ricochet is doing things in the ring. I think I said it post-WrestleMania on our podcast. It's like watching a baseball pitcher that could throw like 104 miles an hour. And the manager's just like, no, just throw knuckleballs. That's all we want from you.
Yeah.
This dude did a fucking... It's a backflip kick. It's a moonsault kick where you're supposed to be able to bounce off the dude's chest in a drop kick to give you enough propulsion and momentum to go backwards. Logan's just not in the right spot. And my man Ricochet just fucking does it anyway. Like he's damn Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat and flips anyway. The body control of this guy is next level. And I'm sure that he's happy in WWE. I'm sure he's handsomely paid. Selfishly, there's a part of me that just wishes if I had a trade machine and I could trade somebody from AEW to WWE, that dude is number one. Switching brands.
Yeah, we had that in a podcast months and months ago. Like, he was the guy that we would pull over.
But I mean, he's incredible. And I'm sure they'll do some kind of crazy spot come SummerSlam that goes viral. But it's gonna be tough to one up. They did a couple months ago. Had some moments, elsewhere on Monday Night Raw, I mean, Gunther continues to just be fantastic in everything he does. He had a little match with Chad Gable, which I was kind of nervous about at first because they put the stipulation on there like, oh, I can beat you in 5 minutes, so let's put the clock on there. And I was like, oh, shit, I hope they don't bury Gable like that. And then, no, they were surprised. Like, Gable survived the 5 minutes, and then the match kept going after a commercial break. And, of course, Gable doesn't get the win, but he looks competitive against a guy like Gunther. And I mean, sign me up for Gunther versus Chad Gable for a long program somewhere in the future. Because like we talked about Chad Gable, you talk about versatility. I mean, he's right there being a rock-solid babyface that can go up against one of the best heels in WWE. Like, he's already there. So that was good to see. I'm trying to think of what else was out there. Of course, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn. I mean, Dominic Mysterio keeps being, the most hated person in the world.
Let's talk about this while you were talking about Dom. What you said before we started recording, we were talking about the state of women's wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
And so, some of the hubbub this week in both WWE and AEW. And just go ahead and expand on what you were talking about before we recorded with Rhea.
Yeah, so this has been a thing, like, if you get on Reddit, you get on TikTok, there's been a lot of, like, what's going on with women's wrestling currently. And it first started in AEW. There was, like, hardly any women's matches on AEW for the past, like, month. And then when they have been, they've been really quick.
The one that was on Collision Saturday night was just... for whatever reason, like what's happening there.
Yeah, and then AEW production even got a close-up of a sign that said, book the women's division better, TK, or something to that effect. And then, so AEW caught the brunt of it to begin with, but then flash forward to this week, the Becky Lynch Trish Stratus match that we all thought was going to happen at SummerSlam has seemingly, I guess, been moved to just a random episode of Monday Night Raw in Canada in a couple weeks, or maybe next week.
Like, what's the reason for that? Yeah.
Especially when Trish Stratus is a legend. Becky Lynch is one of the biggest stars in the company. You only have so many big pay-per-views and you can't find a spot for them. And then you look at a champion like Rhea Ripley. She's been the women's champion. And yeah, she's over. She's a star. But she's kind of been relegated to just like Dominic's side piece for these past couple weeks. I mean, yeah, she beat up Liv Morgan. She beat up Raquel Rodriguez. But she kind of just comes out there and stands beside him and cuts her promo, and she's got the belt, but nobody's really challenging for her. She doesn't have a match at SummerSlam.
Yeah, it is a little odd that she's only defended it 3 times.
So,
I mean, we say that's odd, but I mean, you got other people who haven't defended theirs in forever either. So
yeah, but so I guess, like, you know, if you want to really like dissect it, in AEW, I don't think this is the correct case to make, but you could make a case that the reason the women's division isn't booked better is because the women's division doesn't have a lot of stars currently in it. Jamie Hayter is injured.
Soraya's injured.
She's injured. You know, there have been people like Willow Nightingale who have kind of caught momentum, who I think could be a really big star. I still don't think that that's the case that kind of lets AEW off the hook, because I think they have enough women there, talented women who you could give really good stories to. I mean, the Outsiders, the Outcasts. Fuck, I keep doing that. It's the same shit. The Outcast, Tony Storm. Like, there's a story there that, for whatever reason, they're just not telling it to its full potential, yeah. I don't think.
And we know Britt Baker has kind of taken the stance of, hey, I had my run. I want to step back and help push some other folks, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why she's probably not featured prominently right now. But, like, you could still have her involved in some of the stories.
I mean, we say she's not featured prominently, but, like, the token women's matches that they've had, they've all featured her.
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
So, I don't know. Like I said, in AEW, people will try to make the case they don't have enough star power. I don't think so. I think you can still tell a compelling story. You can't use the excuse in WWE that they don't have enough star power to push the women's division more than what they do. I mean, yes, Asuka, Bianca, and Charlotte are currently in their feud. They're going to have a match at SummerSlam, but, like, you can't find a spot for Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus at SummerSlam?
Yeah.
Like,
it doesn't have to be a long match. Give it 10 minutes.
No, and I mean, Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville are entertaining as hell. Like, we can't give them more to do. They got beat Saturday, Friday night, whenever it was, by Bianca and Charlotte. So, like, which it's kind of crazy to think about, because, you know, Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda literally main evented a WrestleMania not that long ago. And women's wrestling had so much momentum, and it feels like it's not died down completely. It's certainly not as hot as what it was 3, 4, 5 years ago.
I think that was the first Mania back. Was that Mania?
Yeah.
I think it was the first Mania back after I started watching wrestling again.
Yeah.
Because Becky was one of the first people I kind of was like, okay, I can get behind this. And she was like on her run toward Becky 2 belts.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know if WWE would ever do a women's only show. And AEW probably doesn't have the real estate in terms of like television deals and stuff like that to do a women's only show. But, you know, there's
turn Rampage into, that'd be a nice, I mean, a solid hour. Just give us.
I don't think that that's a bad idea. And I think if I was in Tony Khan's shoes, I would make that choice. That AEW Rampage, I would call it something else.
Somebody holler at TK and run this up the flagpole.
And I would rebrand it as, this is a women's only show. You're going to get 3 women's matches. We're going to tell a bunch of stories on here. We'll still tell the main stories on Dynamite and Collision, but this is a space to highlight some of the talented women. You can pull a lot of women off the indies. I mean, you have a person like Athena who I keep seeing clips from Ring of Honor. I don't watch Ring of Honor weekly, but the fans that do are like, she's doing the best work of her career, and it's kind of just being squandered because it's on this place that not a lot of people are watching.
Right.
Whereas if it was on Rampage on Friday, at least you would know you would have a wider available audience that could consume the content. Now, whether they do or not, it's a different question, but I don't know, something to think about. But yeah, it's just been a topic of conversation on the internet, and figure we can bring it up and talk about it.
Gotcha. Well, let's go backwards a little bit and get into Dynamite from last week. Orange Cassidy versus AR Fox started off the show. Cassidy beat Fox in a great match. Cassidy put his glasses on Fox as a show of respect, like he sometimes does after the match. Fox took them off and broke them and sucker punched Cassidy. And then you could tell immediately that, like, Fox was like, wait a minute, I fucked up.
Yeah.
And he had that look of regret on his eye, right, when he's walking to the back. And then, so Darby Allin runs out from the back, and he's like, hey, why'd you do that? I put my name on this. Like, that's fucking embarrassing, blah, 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 blah. And then Moxley runs out and punches Cassidy. I thought that was an interesting way to start off. I didn't really see that coming. I mean, I knew that they wouldn't but they made it a point. AR Fox has been on TV for months at this point.
Yeah.
But they gave him this package, like, they're introducing this guy, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of interesting.
They're diving more into his backstory, that this is a dude who not only has he been grinding on the indies, but he's helped a lot of these guys who are now on AEW and who have eclipsed him in star power. He helped get them there. Yeah.
He gave Darby Allin a place to crash when he was sleeping in his car in Atlanta.
Which is really good timing to do that package, because now that AR Fox has turned heel and joined Mogul Embassy, the first thing he can say is like, I helped all you dudes get here and none of y'all helped me get here. It gives him a reason to be a bad guy. He has a motivation.
Yeah.
And he needs something, because again, like, super talented guy, can do a lot of moves, but like we talk about all the time, when it comes to wrestling, it's not all about the moves.
Yeah.
And you need to have a character. And I think situating him with Mogul Embassy, with a guy like Swerve who can talk, with a guy like Prince Nana who can talk, who can kind of be his manager, that's like the perfect spot for him. They got Mogul Embassy right and Swerve Strickland's group right 7 months after the fact they were going to put it together.
Took them a while.
They should have just done this to begin with, because all these dudes were here in AEW. You didn't have to go get Parker Boudreaux and fucking, what was his name?
Tattoo Face.
Trench.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Swerve and Darby had a match later, and Swerve beat Darby after the assistance from AR Fox, like we just kind of alluded to there.
Yeah.
And then Fox and Swerve beat down both Allen and Nick Wayne. So I guess they're going to pair Nick Wayne up a little more with Darby, which kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So they know each other. That's an easy way to get Nick comfortable.
Yeah. And if you're going to have Darby and Swerve feud, Darby needs some numbers on his side too.
Sure. Sting's not always going to be around.
Right. I still just think though that Swerve, I mean, if he should be doing way more in AEW, they should be using him way more. He has a hip hop supervillain is something that we literally have never seen in wrestling before.
Right.
And it's so like with the times and so current. And he has just a fantastic look. He's got a move set. He moves in the ring the way like nobody I've ever really seen. And that damn flying sidekick that he does is just a thing of beauty. And he hit it on Darby coming off the steps, and just a sick looking spot that looked like he just damn KO'd Darby right there instantly. But yeah, I want to see more from Swerve. I want to see people use him more, kind of in the way that like Bullet Club Gold is used like on every single Collision episode, basically. I want to see that for Swerve. And like we talked about with this quote unquote brand split that AEW has, guys like Swerve are going to benefit the most from this, because it just opens up more of the landscape to have stories that feature them be featured on these shows. So Swerve should be a staple on Dynamite going forward. There should not be another Dynamite episode that happens that doesn't have him at the forefront of it somehow. And at some point, we need to move this dude up into either the TNT title picture or the international title. He needs a gold strapped around his waist sooner rather than later.
Yeah. You've been a big pro Swerve guy for quite a while, and it's hard to argue. I mean,
well, give me somebody in wrestling that looks like him, right? You even look at AEW. Look at a guy like Wardlow. Big, strong dude. Okay, Powerhouse Hobbs, same thing. Brian Cage, same thing, right? Jungle Jack Perry, who we'll talk about, continues to get screen time. He's not all that different than like Sammy Guevara or Darby Allin, kind of small, undersized, right? Give me somebody out there that moves like Swerve, that has a gimmick like Swerve, that has a tie to hip hop culture the way Swerve has. Outside of Hit Row, which is, you know, ironically the group that he helped found in the NXT, who has since gone completely to shit since he's been gone, right? He was clearly the star of that group.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody like Swerve out there on television. And so, like, when you have a guy like that on your roster, it just makes sense to use him as much as you possibly can. And the cherry on top is that the dude is talented as hell inside the ring and can do all the moves.
Yeah, for sure.
So it makes too much sense.
Yeah. So the next thing I've got in the notes is that MJF and Cole have their interview with Renee. MJF says that he will give Cole a rematch for the title no matter what happens in the FTR match on Saturday. And then Roderick Strong interrupts both of them, and it gets contentious between he and Adam Cole. You know, Adam's kind of getting tired of that shit with his old buddy Roderick.
So MJF, great on the mic as always. Absolutely lost it when he called Roderick a default call. Creator wrestler, which is what fucking everyone has always said about Roddy. Like, if you just go on the SmackDown, the wrestling games, and just like make the base creator wrestler, it looks a lot like Roderick Strong when you first start. I'll tell you what, though, this is the first time where watching this promo on Wednesday, I was like, oh, they're going to turn Adam Cole heel, and MJF is going to be a babyface. Because there was a moment when Adam tells MJF, like, okay, just go on, I'll handle this. And he looks at Roderick, and he's like, trust me. And I was like, oh, I don't know when they'll do it. Obviously, you know, we'll have Collision that we'll talk about. It didn't happen Saturday. MJF is going to be a babyface, and Adam Cole's going to be a heel at some point in the near future. And it is going to be electric for AEW. Like, they have a thing here. This is one hell of a story. And, you know, will it bring more ratings in? I don't know. But it's shaping up. That MJF babyface turn that we've all so desperately wanted, it's finally here. And it's really going to kick off when Adam Cole super kicks MJF right in the mush at some point.
Yeah. Well, fuck it. I mean, we can go ahead and skip to that from Saturday from Collision on Saturday, and then we can circle back to some of the other things that happened on Collision. So, you know, they had the match with FTR. A lot of great shit happening in that match. FTR wins. MJF saved Cole from the Shatter Machine, and nobody turned on anybody after the match. You know, at one point, Cole hands the world title belt to Max because Max is in the corner like, oh, it's my fault.
Yeah.
You know, and Cole gives him his belt, and he's like, hey, you're the fucking champ. You know, we both lost this, but you're still the fucking champ, right?
Yeah.
And then so Cole stands up, goes to the opposite side of the ring, and is standing there with his arms out, you know, and he's saying to the camera, go ahead and do it.
Well, he hears the crowd
Yeah.
start oohing and ahhing as MJF stands up.
Yeah.
And he says, I knew it. And then he just puts his arms out.
Yeah.
Waiting for it. And it doesn't come. Which was just... And then, of course, then he turns around. They have the big embrace. The fucking roof blows off the top of the building. Just fantastic stuff all the way through. So now the question is, what happens? What comes next, right? That's always a question. so we have to tie a lot of stuff in here because obviously the CM Punk promo, what's in the bag? Lo and behold, the worst kept secret in wrestling. It's the fucking world title. He draws the X on it, right? You have to do MJF and CM Punk at some, like you got to do that match, that program.
Yeah, he Punk made it a point to be like, this X means that I'm straight edge, which means that I'm better than you.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, well.
And he was like, unlike my catchphrases, this title hasn't been stolen. Like, he hasn't been pinned, right? But it's not that long ago that we saw MJF and CM Punk. So what's the only way that you can make this different? Is you either have to have two baby faces. CM Punk has to be a baby face. MJF has to be a baby face. Or you got to turn CM Punk heel completely, which I think, regardless of whether he turns heel or not, if he goes up against MJF right now, CM Punk's going to get booed.
Yeah.
He just will. But I think they have, if they decide to run in this direction, and I think they will, they have a really interesting story, which is MJF, for the first time in his life, has a friend. And he has a best friend, right? And Adam Cole. The bullying at MJF, he's talked about that on the show. We know it. And like the reason he feels upset after Saturday is because like here's this one friend he's only had and he let him down, right? He's the one that got pinned. You look at a guy like CM Punk. CM Punk, particularly now, with all the shit that we know, has no friends, right? His best friend in the entire world, he tried to sue for whatever the fuck that lawsuit was, and
yeah.
Then brawl out happens, and we know the fucking story.
And we can't even get fucking Colt Cabana on TV anymore.
We can't get Colt Cabana on TV, no. So like, there's a great promo that's just dangling out there where MJF and CM Punk are in the ring, and Adam Cole is backing up MJF. And Max is like, you don't have any friends. You don't know what you're all alone. Like, for the first time in my life, I have a friend. And not only that, like, this dude was a hero of mine in the way that you were a hero. Except he never tried to, like, choke me out with a dog chain. He never, tried to embarrass me. Like, he's been there thick and thin. And then you can do that you could do it at Wembley, I guess, if you wanted. You could run in Max and CM Punk. And then what's going to happen if you want to really put a stamp and make MJF a babyface, right? Big time moments deserve big time venues. What better place to turn Adam Cole heel than in front of 85,000 people at Wembley?
Because they haven't announced shit for Wembley yet.
They haven't announced a single match. Punk Saturday was the first person to say, I'm the first wrestler to talk about Wembley. Because it's been a thing that they've announced, but none of the wrestlers have mentioned it. It's kind of been weird. What if we get a Punk Max match? MJF pins CM Punk clean, middle of the ring. They do a big thing. Punk raises up Max's hand. They do the whole little thing. Punk rolls out of the ring. Max is there all alone. Here comes Adam Cole running down the ramp to celebrate, right? They hug. They embrace. Max turns around. Boom. Super kick. That place will lose its mind. And like we talked about, in that one moment, you've created a viciously hated heel in Adam Cole, and you've created a sympathetic, completely over babyface that the crowd has been wanting to cheer for at least a year and a half. And I don't know where you do that, like where you run that match, because literally the next week is All Out. After All In, right? Like the
y'all
in Chicago.
Start putting your money back.
Oh yeah. We'll talk about that.
It'll be an expensive month.
But yeah, I mean, they're gonna do it. How they get there and when they decide to pull the trigger on the babyface MJF run remains to be seen. But I mean, it would shock me now if MJF is the one to turn on Adam Cole and not vice versa.
This is an element of the Punk story I want to talk about. At what point does somebody just come out and be like, time out, look, this is not how this works. This is not steal your belt. That shit was relinquished because you couldn't perform, right? That's how these things work in the business.
Yeah.
Right? At what point does somebody just be like, "No, cuss"? Or are they just going to keep rolling with this story that he thinks that belt is still his?
Well, the problem with CM Punk right now is that there's only one feud that fans want to see him with, and they're on the other show.
Yeah.
And
although, I mean, I wouldn't be mad at another Punk MJF feud, but
yeah, it's the prop when everyone knows so much in wrestling, meaning the fans. The longer and longer that you kind of drag out CM Punk versus Ricky Starks, or CM Punk versus Max, or CM Punk versus whomever, I feel like the audience is going to kind of turn on that stuff because they're just going to be like, we just want to see you against the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. We just want to see CM Punk and Kenny Omega. That's all we want to see. Can we just make it happen? And like
in a dog collar match.
Well, just something.
Just bring the fucking dog. We'll bring Larry out.
Bring him out, like. But that's the feud. That's what everyone wants to see. Now, I don't know. Maybe it will never happen. We've said that on this podcast before. I personally think if it never happens, that's a colossal failure, a huge misfire.
That's been our biggest TikTok. That's the one that keeps getting fed into the algorithm. Was the where I pulled the clip from a couple of weeks ago, and you're like, "This is a colossal failure if they don't start making some fucking money."
You gotta make it happen. Because otherwise, what is you're not gonna sell the audience that anything else that CM Punk could do would be better than Punk versus Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks with live mics in the middle of the ring, saying whatever they want to say and airing out all their grievances in front of millions of people around the world.
So there's another element to the Punk story from the other night that I want to discuss because I need you to clarify something for me. He gets a rematch with Ricky Starks, which I ain't mad at. I will be glad to sit and watch that on a Saturday night, right? So, but the stipulation is that he wants an extra ref because Ricky's fucked him twice, basically, on illegal pins, right? So the stipulation is that the guest referee is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Yeah.
Now, I remember Steamboat from when I was a kid in the 80s, but what does that have to do with... I know there's a story, but I don't know what the story is. What does that have to do with...
So Steamboat was a special guest referee in one of CM Punk's matches in Ring of Honor. And I think what CM Punk was alluding to, maybe not in the best way, and I think Riccaboni in commentary tried to get the point across. Ricky Steamboat is one of the few wrestlers in wrestling history to never turn heel. It's like him, Rey Mysterio, maybe one other person. Like he is the baby face of as pure as you can be. So if there's one dude out there in the wrestling world that is like going to call it down the middle and not screw anybody over and adhere to the rules, it's Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's as simple as what it is. I don't think it goes any further than that. Yeah, I think it's just that. Yeah.
I knew there was some sort of something there that was just going over my head. But,
I think that maybe you should have had Punk kind of clarify that a little bit and kind of probably say kind of what I just said. Like there's a dude out there who has always followed the rules. He's never screwed anybody over. He respects pro wrestling too much to ever like give somebody any kind of unfair advantage, and that guy that's going to be our special guest referee is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, something like that, and not just be like the guest referee is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
So the last thing that I want to talk about, which was actually the first match of Collision, was our man's Andrade El Idolo versus Buddy Matthews, friend of the show, friend and mentor. Eddie Forsyth texted me the other night. He was like, "Hey, are you watching?" I was like, "I'm about 15 minutes behind." I was like, I had some stuff going on. And so at a certain point, I texted him. I said, "The match ain't over yet." And I've yelled, "Holy shit," and jumped up out of my chair twice.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to kill each other. I know I say that every once in a while on this podcast, but I thought they were going to kill each other.
If professional wrestling had like an art museum, okay, and it had like still shots of like all these like famous moments in wrestling or all these just like cool images or things that just like brought people so much joy. Like you'd have the photograph of Mick Foley getting thrown off the top of the Hell in a Cell, right? You'd have, Shawn Michaels putting Marty Jannetty's head through the barbershop window, Hulk Hogan dropping the leg on Macho Man to form the NWO. Then if I had my own section, okay, there was a Patrick section of this Pro Wrestling Art Museum, I would have just on loop the fucking back spinning elbow from Andrade. And I would have it on every monitor around the room. And it would be different times he hits that back spinning elbow. I don't know if there's a prettier move in all of pro wrestling than that damn elbow.
It's so precise. And it looks like it hurts so bad.
Well, he comes with the fake kick, right? And then he spins. And he just never misses. And it hits clean. And it sounds great. And he looks like he fucking destroys people with it. And I mean, that's wrestling in a nutshell. That's all it has to be.
Like, what's the fucking... He's on the tall ass ladder outside the ring. He's got the other one basically as a bridge.
Yeah.
Right there, right? Fucking just back slams Buddy onto that fucking thing from damn near the top of that tall ladder.
Yeah.
I was like, you're gonna kill each other, man.
And then, I talked about jokingly like, oh, Julia Hart should have to eat an elbow. And there was a moment Saturday where I was like, oh, they might do it.
Yeah. They were real careful how he threw her off of that ladder into Buddy, right? And then they both crashed the table.
Yeah, because I think she's got a little PTSD where she has been like hit off before, if you'll remember, and she missed the table completely and just smacked her head on the concrete there. But
oh, yeah, that was Willow, right? Or was that a different?
No, that was the Willow match was a street fight. Julia had a spot where she was on the apron and somebody like accidentally like hit her.
Gotcha.
And she threw herself back, but kicked off too far and missed the table that she was supposed to land on and just hit her head. I could watch these two dudes wrestle. I wouldn't be mad if every episode of Collision just started with these two dudes wrestling for some length of time.
Charlotte's husband versus Rhea's boyfriend.
yeah. It's man, I still think, I know I say it every time, there's a version of Buddy Matthews where you give him a manager and he's AEW's version of Brock Lesnar. And he just doesn't have to say anything, and all the manager has to say is, there's not a dude in this company that's faster than him, that's stronger than him, that's better in this ring. And Buddy has just a huge run where he just has 5-star classics with everybody up and down the board.
Well, that's the beauty about having him in a trio with Malachi and Brody, right? Is he just gets to be the third dude.
Yeah.
That's fucking badass.
But here's the thing, like, now, we know what Andrade can do. We know what Andrade and Buddy can do. There's a little bit of pressure on Malachi to kind of come in and let's see what kind of match he can have with Andrade, because if he puts on a stinker,
the other two have shown out.
It could kind of be like, hey, why ain't this dude over here in charge? Why don't he wear all the spooky makeup and wear the mask and all that kind of stuff? Why is it you? So, I don't know. So,
yeah, it was nice to see Andrade get his mask back. It's a good way to start the show, I thought. Overall, I mean, Collision, you were right. Collision has been the better show for me lately.
It's been the better show because it has scaled down what it's telling and the people it's using. I say it every single week. That's why it's better. Because it's about House of Black and Andrade and CM Punk and FTR and Bullet Club Gold. It's basically all the show is. And, they bring other people in and out, but those are the mainstays.
Yeah, and look, Juice Robinson, I can't get enough Juice Robinson.
He's great.
Bullet Club Gold, like, I'm not a heel guy, right? I don't typically, but I'll put Bullet Club Gold on every fucking Saturday.
Dude, it's there. That's you want to talk about the next like big act that AEW can have? I think it's those guys, Jay White and Bullet Club Gold. And again, it's the little things like getting the cutout of Jay White and just sitting it by the side. Like, it's small. It's so small and it's so stupid, but when it's done correctly, it's such a highlight and it's so easy to do. Or just like, the Guns have the cool entrance and the camera spins around to Juice and he's just like coked up. Like what he's brought back is the coked up energy of like the 80s wrestlers. That's what's been missing because all these dudes now are playing video games and
the simplicity and silliness of his nickname Rock Hard.
Yeah. But that's why, like, he's a throwback. Like, if you go back and watch 80s wrestling, it's all kind of silly, right? But they're all just, like, hyped up because everybody was on steroids and cocaine and drinking all the time, and everyone had this, like, energy. And he's just looked at that and been like, that's been missing from wrestling. I'm going to bring it back.
Yeah.
And I'd be damned if, like, every time the camera doesn't go to him, you're just, like, drawn to him in a way. And they're going to be over.
Big-ass bug eyes.
He's great. That man's living life.
Yeah.
He's married to Tony Storm.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. He's the second in charge of a group, so he doesn't have to, like, carry it. He gets to go out and just say stupid shit. Like, the promo that he had against CM Punk that people keep sharing on TikTok, and they keep captioning, like, my toddler when I try to make him go to sleep. And he's like, why do you want to make me go to sleep so bad, huh? I'm not tired. I got my 8 hours.
That's the one when Jay White's walking behind him, right in the backstage area,
and he just starts corpsing because he can't hold on to it.
That's good stuff.
But that's the beauty when, like, you know, he was in WWE system and he was CJ Parker, and they tried to make him do like this. Really, he was just like the human equivalent of like those fucking car dealership little things, you know what I'm talking about, where they put the air on them and the fucking little men do the thing. He was just kind of like the wrestling version of that. And he was just like, fuck it, I don't want to do this. So he quit. He goes to New Japan. And slowly but surely, he turns himself into this character. And like, who's more captivating right now on television than old rock hard Juice Robinson?
It's a tough one.
I mean, he's doing it. He's making good TV.
Well, I think that's all we got for the week. I didn't get a chance to see the Cody documentary yet. Did you?
I haven't either. Mm-mm.
I'm excited to see what's happening there.
I haven't even like read spoilers for it. I've kind of just stayed away from it.
I do know, like, you were right. I did see one thing today on just an article. I didn't actually see any clips, but the thing where we talked last week where he's like, you know, this is the one thing I want to make sure, blah, blah, blah. And it was about his time away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was real adamant about how they portrayed that, I guess. So.
Because, I mean, you have to, man. It's so integral to who he ended up becoming.
Yeah, you can't just pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll both get a chance to see that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week on the podcast for sure.
Yeah, I should have time this weekend for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it, man, unless you got anything else.
No, we got a huge SummerSlam coming up Saturday. And then, yeah, Wembley is right around the corner. They got to start announcing some matches pretty soon.
You got to think that's because we're in August.
Yeah, it's the 27th.
Yeah, you got to think that starts happening.
But the only people at this point they're trying to convince to buy it is us, right? They've already sold majority of the tickets. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what will happen.
I figure some people that maybe haven't bought pay-per-views in the past might try to get this one just because of the spectacle and like the anticipation of what they think might happen.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why you got to start announcing those matches. It doesn't matter for the ticket sales; those tickets are going to sell.
And like, who's going to show up? You know, we've speculated. Is there going to? Well, Will Ospreay. We're not speculated. Will Ospreay has straight up said he wants to be on this show.
Yeah,
because it's happening in his backyard. So yeah, we gotta. It doesn't seem like they're going to do Ospreay versus Omega 3, because you would kind of build that up if it was. Which kind of makes me think that New Japan was like, nah, we want to save that for like our Wrestle Kingdom show. We want that on our, like, he's one of our guys. It's our title.
Yeah, because they gave us, I mean, they had this other match on AEW.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
So you got to put Sting on the card. You got to put Sting in front of a UK audience.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jericho. Omega and the Young Bucks have to be associated. And Hangman, they got to be on there somewhere. You're going to see Blackpool Combat Club. I would have to think you got to see Ospreay in some kind of capacity, doing something.
Yeah.
This might be another damn 5-hour.
Soraya, probably, right? If she's
healthy.
What her injury is, yeah.
So we might be gearing up for another 5.5 hour pay-per-view or whatever.
I mean, it was going to be 5 hours anyway. 4.5.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it. We join our network of podcasters or follow us along at thealabamatake.com. There's a fun crossover podcast this week between the Check Your Shelf podcast and the Stare Down podcast, which are two of our podcasts there in the network. They just released a new episode today on both of their feeds. Taking It Down is another weekly sports podcast. It's back to every Monday now because we're gearing up for football season. Taking It Down is a weekly pop culture podcast. Does a lot of TV and movies and sometimes other things, music and such. And then We Are a Star War. We're back doing those again, just whenever we can. We've got a few basically for the next few weeks planned and recorded already, so those will be out. And then This Song Sucks is still going on as well. So be sure just follow all of that at thealabamatake.com or any of the social networks at the Alabama Take. And we, the Alabama Slam podcast, are at Alabama Slam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm going to try to get back on TikTok again
Is
this
it
week.
still Twitter or is it just X?
Fucking X. Yeah.
Or is they still calling it Twitter?
It's X. I mean, everybody still calls it Twitter. I've heard several people be like, I will never, ever refer to this as X.
It's fucking stupid.
And I think like people are trying to make threads happen, but it's just not there yet. And I think that's the only reason people haven't completely abandoned Twitter. And even Blue Sky is not there yet, which Blue Sky was developed by the guy that developed Twitter, I think. So in theory, that should be the one that everybody jumps to. But right now, you got to have a fucking invitation to get in on there. And they're only like ever so often available. It's a bunch of horse shit. I don't know. Just, you knew this is going to be fucking huge. Create the shit and have it ready to accept anybody who wants to fucking join so we can all get off of fucking nightmare that is Twitter.
I just started seeing like the app turned into an X. And then everybody, when they put like, when you're watching a show or like, and they put like their Facebook handle, and then they put their Twitter and it just had an X. I was like, what the fuck is happening?
It's a hellscape.
This is what happens when you fucking you grow up homeschool or whatever, and you don't actually grow up in front of real people. And you're just fucking wealthy and you don't have any like understanding of, human interaction or emotion or anything resembling. He needs friends, honestly. But who'd want to be friends with him?
Why did they... that's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down.
I mean, yeah, he's trolling. It's a troll job.
It's a troll job. Well, we appreciate y'all listening, and I think we're growing a little bit. Our numbers are starting to pop off a little more, so we appreciate that. And if you like what we're doing, just share us with your friends, and we will talk to y'all next Wednesday.
Later, guys.